Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to participants joining in from different parts of the world. Hello and welcome to Climate Smart Healthcare webinar series. My name is Masroor Azam, and today's topic for the webinar is energy efficiency in healthcare facilities. The speaker for today is Dr. Satish Kumar, who is the President and Executive Director for Alliance for Energy for an Energy Efficient Economy, that is AEEE. So we started this Climate Smart Healthcare webinar series back in 2020 with an aim to showcase innovations happening in the healthcare sector with respect to climate change, climate resilience and climate mitigation. And not only showcasing the innovations happening in the Indian healthcare sector, but also educating them about how to become climate resilient, how to reduce their carbon footprint, and how to decarbonize themselves. So before calling upon today's speaker for the webinar, I would like to briefly introduce our participants today to various organizations and platforms involved in organizing this webinar today. So Center for Chronic Disease Control, which is the parent organization, is a New Delhi-based non-profit organization and was established in December 2000. The mission of CCDC is primarily intended to address the growing challenges of chronic diseases in developing countries through knowledge generation, which can inform policies and empower programs for the prevention and control of chronic diseases. Also through knowledge translation, which are intended to operationalize research results by bridging the critical gaps between research and implementation. CCDC has also been recognized as a scientific and industrial research organization by Department of Scientific and Industrial Research under the Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. Health and Environment Leadership Platform, under which today's webinar is being organized, was established in February 2017 in partnership with Public Health Foundation of India, Center for Chronic Disease Control, and Healthcare Without Harm. I'll briefly introduce other organizations like Healthcare Without Harm and the Global Green and Healthy Hospitals in the subsequent slides. So the Health and Environment Leadership Platform is also the Indian arm of the Global Green and Healthy Hospitals. It currently has a membership base of 73 members, representing the interest of over 7,700 plus healthcare facilities in India. And it also represents over and above 30,000 physicians in India. The primary focus of the platform is to showcase leadership in health systems by reducing its environmental and energy burden. It also advocates for the importance of intersectoral collaborative policy making to address the impacts of environmental pollution. It also builds capacity of physicians on the health impacts of environmental pollution. As I've already said, that there are approximately 73 members representing the interests of over 7,700 plus healthcare institutions. You can see in this slide the list of a varied list of health members. Healthcare Without Harm is an international non-profit organization that works with an aim to transform the healthcare sector worldwide so that it reduces its environmental footprints and becomes a community anchor for sustainability and a leader in the global movement for environmental health and justice. Together with its partners around the world, Healthcare Without Harm shares a vision of a healthcare sector that does no harm and instead promotes the health of people and the environment. Over the last 2 decades, Healthcare Without Harm has had a significant impact on the health sector by working with health professionals, hospitals, major health systems, ministries, and UN bodies across the globe. So Global Green and Healthy Hospital is an initiative within Healthcare Without Harm. It is an international network of hospitals, healthcare facilities, health systems, and health organizations which are dedicated to reduce their environmental footprint and promote public and environmental health. Global Green and Healthy Hospitals currently has a membership base of 1,450 members in approximately 72 countries. and which represents the interest of over 43,000 hospitals across the globe. GGHH members constantly use innovation, ingenuity, and investment to transform the health sector and foster a healthy future for people and the planet. The Global Green and Healthy Hospital has its foundation in a comprehensive framework of 10 interconnected goals, starting right from leadership, which prioritize environmental health, waste, water, transportation, and energy, which we are discussing in today's webinar. Before I jump into introducing today's webinar, I would like to ask Dr. Poornima to briefly tell our audience today about what entails climate smart healthcare. Over to you, Dr. Poornima.
Words on standing in solidarity with all colleagues, family members, and friends whose families have been touched by COVID. It's certainly a grim scenario. And like he said, we did consider deferring this webinar, but registrations kept coming in. And so we thought we'll just go ahead with it today. We will be recording this webinar and sharing it with people who could not make it, as well as through our newsletter going forwards. So I just want to start with giving a little bit of a context for this webinar series. So we started this series about 6 months ago. So we've done about 6 or 7 webinars. And the reason for starting this was very simple. Just as we are in the middle of a very grim, evolving pandemic, we also have another slowly growing pandemic right in our backyards, which is climate change. Maybe it doesn't sound so relevant today, but it is being pegged as the biggest public health challenge of the 21st century. And we've also heard several times over in various fora that it also provides us the biggest opportunity for the 21st century to deal with it. Simply because unlike what we are seeing probably with the COVID pandemic, we have the resources and the wherewithal to understand this pandemic a little bit better than we do the other one. So climate change impacts health. I mean, this is something that has been documented worldwide. The increasing temperatures, the rising sea levels, the impacts of those in the form of heat waves, floods, droughts, all of that has huge impacts for health. And the reason why we as health sector need to be concerned is, one, we are not even ready to be sensitized enough because we haven't, as far as I was a medical student, we never learned about climate change in our medical curricula. So there is a lot of work to be done right there to sensitize the health sector about the concept of climate change and the impacts, the huge impacts it's going to have on health going forwards. And that preparedness and resilience of the healthcare sector to adapt to these acute impacts on health for climate change is one whole pillar of the concept of climate smart healthcare. The other pillar, paradoxically, is the fact that health sector, like many other sectors, it's hard to accept, but is also responsible for the greenhouse gas emissions that cause the changing climate. It is a fact that rings true now. There is evidence to show that operating healthcare facilities also has a huge carbon footprint. And our partners, Healthcare Without Harm, have been very active in this domain in documenting that evidence about emissions that come from the health sector. There have been 2 recently released reports, one in 2019 and one very recently, about a week ago, which has shown that the emissions from the health sector are massive enough to need immediate attention. And we talk about the emissions from the health sector coming from 3 different domains. So for those who are familiar, the greenhouse gas emissions come from scope 1, which is the direct operations of the healthcare facilities, the activities within the healthcare sector, within the facilities. The second, which is the scope 2 emissions, comes from their energy use. And the third, which is the largest, actually, the component that contributes to most of the footprint for healthcare facilities, comes from its supply chain. But health sector utilization of energy is a very important concept that we could all leverage. And that is why the focus of the webinar has been on energy efficiency of healthcare facilities today. So the concept of reducing our own footprint, the footprint of healthcare facilities, speaks to the second pillar of climate smart healthcare, which means we need to mitigate our own footprint, reduce our own emissions. So these two pillars of climate preparedness or adaptation and the mitigation of our footprint contribute, constitute the concept of climate smart healthcare. And today we are going to focus on one pillar in that framework of climate smart healthcare, the others being the other resources that we use in healthcare, water, for instance, the way we build our infrastructure, our use of pharmaceuticals, the way we manage our healthcare waste. All of these are different pillars within our healthcare operations, which we need to address. We have been trying to focus in this webinar series on particular aspects of the climate smart healthcare facilities. And today's focus will be on energy efficiency within healthcare facilities. I'll stop there and hand over back to my colleague Masroor, who will introduce our speaker. We have a very eminent speaker from the energy efficiency world, and I'm delighted to welcome him to this webinar today. Masroor, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Purnima. I'll briefly introduce Dr. Satish Kumar today. Dr. Satish Kumar is currently the President and Executive Director of the Alliance for Energy Efficient Economy, that is AEEE. Prior to AEEE, he was the Energy Efficiency Ambassador and led the energy management business at the Schneider Electric India. He was a scientist at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and the chief of party for a USAID-supported bilateral energy efficiency technical assistance program, that is ECO3 project. Those who work in energy efficiency field know very much what is ECO3 program. He's also a member of the TEAP's Energy Efficiency Task Force under the Montreal Protocol. He's a lead fellow, certified energy manager, and certified measurement and verification professional. Without wasting any further time, I would like to invite Dr. Satish Kumar for today's presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Masroor, and thank you, Dr. Prabhakaran. I hope you are able to hear me.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start sharing my presentation here. Okay, so first of all, I just want to echo that I think we are all facing a grim situation. I hope people are taking good care of themselves and their loved ones. And we hope that this testing condition will soon pass and we will start to return back to some normalcy. So thank you for taking time out, I think, during this pretty grim situation to attend this webinar. My sincere thanks and gratitude to the Center for Chronic Disease Control, with whom we are also partnering on an initiative. I'll be briefly touching upon that. And for inviting me as a speaker for the Climate Smart Healthcare webinar series. So let us get into the presentation. I am, just let me turn this into, okay. People can share, can see my screen, I'm hoping, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the outline of the presentation. And as Masroor just mentioned that I am the President Executive Director of the Alliance for an Energy Efficient Economy. And as Dr. Prabhakaran also mentioned that I think energy consumption, which is a subset of the total climate impact of the Indian healthcare system, is something that AEEE has been focused on. And I have also focused on it for the last 10-15 years. So what we are going to do is to share some of the things that we know, and also some of the things that are in the pipeline, and maybe some information that can help you in how can you make your facilities more energy efficient, because I'm assuming that there are people who represent the healthcare system, and either they are doctors, they are owners of hospitals, or they are administrators, I think, of hospitals. So these are the things that I'm going to be talking about. Let me jump in. So these are, I think, I thought that we should start with some of the questions that hospital owners or administrators and the energy efficient community and professionals that they grapple with. I think when we talk about how do we make hospitals energy efficient. So what do you need to do to reliably and accurately characterize energy use in hospital at national and state level? I mean, something that AEEE works on. We have, as I said, I think we started to work on this particular issue under the USAID ECO3 project. There are some publications that are out there, and we are trying to make some of this information more reliable, more accurate. The second question, which I think is pretty important as well, is what do we need to do to plug some of the key gaps in developing energy benchmarks for the Indian healthcare sector? And I'm going to be touching upon some of these issues because I feel that unless we have some information available in terms of how much a primary healthcare center should energy it should consume, what should be the energy intensity of a multi-specialty hospital, do we know that how much energy an MRI machine uses, or how do I know that I think whether my hospital can be retrofitted and I can have better operating and maintenance protocols to reduce energy consumptions. So, so I think these are like some of the questions that we have been mulling over. And I thought that before I jump into the presentation, I'll just list some of them so that we can start orienting towards this. And I think the last bullet is that can the bottom line and environmental impact of hospitals be significantly improved? And do we have the right tools and the right, I think, questions that we can ask, which will allow us to do this? So I'm going to start with India's healthcare infrastructure. Probably some of you folks are much better equipped to answer this question. But our, I think, investigation into India's healthcare infrastructure is mostly in terms of characterizing for energy footprinting of this. We are looking at it from that perspective. We are not looking in terms of enhanced, I think, the healthcare services that we can provide, or how do we reduce mortality rates and those kind of things. But it is primarily from the energy footprinting perspective. So, so if you look about it, I think the way I think we are addressing this, that we feel that there is a public healthcare infrastructure and then there is a private healthcare infrastructure, and these both have different sort of characteristics. So here what we are doing is, if we are looking at and we are, I think sometimes we are struggling with the definitions, but we are trying to see that, hey, which are the, I think, centers that are taking care of primary healthcare. And I think in that we are putting sub-centers and primary health centers. And then we are looking at secondary care. So where community health centers, the subdivisional hospitals, district hospitals, and then the tertiary one are the large medical colleges and the large associated hospitals with that. This is, I don't think that there is a real definition that we have been able to find, but just to get our arms around this, I think we have started to probably put this framework, and we will be very happy, I think, if amongst the audience, if you have some definition that you can share, which will probably allow us to improve, or I think if there is some standard definition that we can use. And I think the numbers that you are starting to look at in terms of the population and number of beds, these are pretty much, I would say, Government of India norms that we are picking. These are not, I think, our attempt to frame this. Our framing is only the top level, the primary, secondary, and tertiary. I think the population norms, number of beds, and then what kind of services are offered. I think these we have just culled from, I think, the literature that are out there. And the reason I think you will start to see this is important is that all this has an implication in terms of how much energy I think, say a primary health center will use, or how much energy a district hospital will use. So let's continue that. So this is, I think, when we are looking at the private and public healthcare infrastructure and what are some of the key numbers, because the numbers will drive the energy consumption. So on the left hand table, the left side table that you are seeing, these we have collated from, I think, various sources. The sources are listed below. I think these are pretty much, I think, in the public domain. If you go to the Ministry of the Health website, I think you will start to see this. I think what is really striking here is if we start to break down some of these numbers, then we see that if we take sub-centers, and I think we believe that sub-centers are going to be really small facilities, and we have tried to actually using our best available information that how big the sub-centers are likely to be and what will be the energy intensity. We have tried to put down some of those things. Similarly with primary health centers and community health centers, and then the total number of healthcare facilities, where we have not been able to really divide it into primary, secondary, tertiary, but I think we feel that primary is very low, I think, in the private healthcare. It's mostly secondary and tertiary that we are looking at. And then we have tried to slice and dice these numbers a little differently in the pie charts on the right-hand side. So if you see that if we exclude sub-centers, then public, I think the private, the healthcare infrastructure starts to become bigger than the public healthcare. Just, I think, in terms of the numbers that we are talking about, we are really not talking about the energy intensity there. But if we include, then of course, I think the public healthcare becomes a larger. And then I think within that, if you are looking at primary, secondary, tertiary, then in public infrastructure, it's the big focus is on primary. 96% is, I think, what you can see, again, just in terms of the numbers that we are looking at. Whereas if you look at the private infrastructure, we think that the secondary infrastructure, which are the smaller hospitals, dispensaries that we are talking about, that is the bulk of the thing. But there is a significant tertiary component, which are the multi-specialty and the super specialty. And those are the real energy hogs. That's where I think the big energy consumption happens. So this is just, I think, giving some perspective in terms of how we are trying to structure this so that I think we can characterize this sector a little better. So now we are, I think, with that background, I just want to go, I think, into the energy consumption in hospitals. And I think while we have put together some numbers and we are going to share some information, I would also like to be pretty candid that there is a lot that we don't know, I think, for this healthcare segment. And I think wherever possible, we will caveat it. We will say that these are real guess estimates, or these are like broad estimates with some overarching assumptions that we are making. So please keep that in mind as we go through the remaining part of the presentation. I think there are some definitions here that I just wanted people to understand, because we are very familiar, but we understand that I think the healthcare professionals, you may not be able to actually totally comprehend this. So we call like energy performance index, EPI. And I think EPI is something that this terminology gets thrown about very, very, I think, commonly when we are talking about energy efficiency. And there are two ways I think we can do the energy performance index. One is the total energy consumption, which is normalized by the area. So the built up area of the hospital and then per annum. So I think we get some numbers and you will see some numbers here. And then I think what you also see is the bed, because I think the hospital beds, and we are primarily, I think our focus, you will see, are the hospitals with beds, because otherwise it becomes too big a problem for us to start to, I think, quantify. So we are primarily looking at inpatient facilities, because that's where we feel that the bulk of the energy consumption is happening. So bed EPIs, total energy consumption per bed per annum. I think that's the other metric that we use when we are talking about energy consumption in the healthcare sector. So I think what we are looking, so the first thing, because we work, I think at the economy level, so we work not just for hospitals, but we also work for hotels, we also work for office buildings, we also work for retail malls and transit facilities. So this particular slide is essentially orienting people in terms of how large the hospital with beds. I think that's the number that we have done so far. I think in the survey that we are going to be talking about, we are hoping to extend it a little bit into some of the primary healthcare. I'm not sure how much we will cover the secondary, but yes, I think we will do that. So if you talk about that, then in terms of the built up area, I think you look, it's a little above 1 billion square meters is what we are talking about. And I think the hospitals, I think we are talking about 6%. So we are roughly, I think, and these are again estimates, these are not based on surveys or very high degree of confidence interval. So we are talking about, say, 60 million or like, say, 60 to 70 million square meters of like inpatient hospitals that is built. In terms of the energy performance index, which is mostly we are looking at kilowatt hour area normalized numbers. So hospitals are the most energy intensive amongst all the commercial building facilities. So close to about 140 kilowatt hour per square meter per year. That's on the right hand side. And I think if you look at the total energy footprint among the commercial buildings that we are talking about, so we are talking about 11% of the total footprint. I think that 14% of the total footprint that can be attributed. And in terms of the total number, then what we are looking about is about 11 terawatt hour is what we are looking at. That's the amount of total energy that the hospitals uses. Again, all these numbers that we are talking about, the sources are there. These are pretty much secondary, I think, sources that we have. So I think the degree of confidence that we have is not great, but I think we have tried to, this is a journal publication that we printed about 3-4 years ago, where we estimated these numbers. So this is again past work that we are talking about. Moving on, I think this is our attempt, and I think this is something that we are starting to do to help, I think, you conduct this survey that we are conducting in partnership with CCDC. And I think these are like real guess estimates that we are looking at. But it is really important to understand, I think, what we are literally talking about. And again, I would say that we do not shy away from, I think, using what we know and what our expert judgment tells us. But I think we may be wrong here in terms of understanding whether the sub-centers, I think it's just fan and lighting, which are the primary main end users in primary healthcare. There could be refrigerators. We don't know how reliable the electricity supply is, I think, in these things, how many hours these refrigerators are running. Same thing with community. So you will see that, I think, all the different end users, I think that different hospitals will use. We have started to put that out in the second column. And then we have also started to come out with very broad, I think, area estimates in terms of how much area these, I think, hospitals are. So medical colleges, I mean, these are big campuses, but we are talking about buildings, built up area. So we are saying about 15,000 to 25,000, I think, square meters of built up area could be there when we are talking about a medical college where I think teaching also happens. And similarly, we are talking about large multi-care, multi-specialty, super specialty kind of hospitals, these tertiary. So they are also about in the same ranges. And then I think the others ones are smaller. And I think we are literally talking about sub-centers. I think we don't know, it could be 200 square feet, it could be 500 square feet. We are not sure, but I think that's the range that we are providing. And then the last column that we are providing is the EPI guess estimate in terms of kilowatt hour per square meter per year kind of numbers. So again, I think we know some of these things, but we are really going out on a limb when we are trying to estimate some of these numbers. And the reason we are doing that is the survey that we are planning to do, which is going to be a primary survey of 1,600 healthcare facilities all over India, which I think that project is currently underway. We believe that the samples that we are going to select, I think, is going to be very, very important, I think, in terms of how we do that. So again, I think this is an important slide. I think I would again welcome people who know more than us, I think, on this thing, and who can actually share their comments through emails or through, I think, chat box, I think anything that you want to do. So what are some key numbers from the past work that we are talking about. So this is, I think, first of all, this was just a subset of 63 hospitals. This was primary survey that we had conducted. This was done almost 10 years ago. And I think that's ironic. And that's why we are so interested in conducting this primary survey, because we feel that I think this sector deserves, I think, much better numbers with higher confidence interval than I think what we are able to do right now. So if you think about it, then kilowatt hour, which is one unit that we consume, I think everybody is familiar with 1 unit of electricity. So per square meter per, I think, year. So that's the left-hand side. And then we are starting to categorize them by primary, I think, healthcare facilities, secondary and tertiary. And you can see that there is a gradual increase, because I think in tertiary, as you have seen, that I think the facilities, I think, are more energy intensive. There is going to be medical imaging equipment. There is going to be hot water and steam for sterilization, for laundry, for all those kind of things. So I think all those facilities, I think, become more energy intensive. And then similarly, if we are normalizing it per bed, then what the numbers are going to be. So I think that's, I think, what this slide is telling us. I think if we talk about the hospital type in terms of multi-specialty, super specialty, because this is mostly, I think, only private sector information that we are talking about. And then you see that there is not that big a difference, because I think both these hospitals are going to be pretty energy intensive. And again, I think we have sliced and diced, and there is a real small sample that we are talking about here. So please, I think, take it with a pinch of salt and don't start to, I think, extrapolate these numbers for India level. I think that's the caveat that I think we are putting out here. Okay, so what we did essentially is that we said that if we have to I think if we have to come out with real broad estimates in terms of large hospitals we are talking about, right? So I think if for private hospitals, then what is the energy used normalized by area? And again, I think we have not gone with point estimates, but we are giving, I think, some ranges. I think the range also probably tells you how confident we are. And I think this is what you start to see, that I think 225 to 250 kilowatt hour or units per square meter per year. And if you translate that into rupees, then you start to see. So I have taken a broad number of like 10 rupees. Some people may say that why are you taking 10 rupees? But I think we also know that many hospitals are run by diesel for some of the key, for a large number of hours. And also a lot of hospitals are treated as commercial and industrial customer. So the amount of, I think, electricity tariff that they pay is actually higher than what we pay in our residential electricity bill. So that's why we have tried to look at like this 10 rupees kind of conversion factor. And then if you look at the normalized by bed, then you see that private, we are talking about 10,000 to 12,500 unit per bed per year. And which means that I think in terms of electricity consumption, I mean, rough number that we are talking is 1 lakh per bed per year, I think is what I think that hospital. But that means that all the other electricity consumption, whether I think it's hot water, whether it's OT and everything is getting normalized by bed. So I think that's something that people need to keep in mind. And I think in public hospitals, I think the numbers are a little lower. But again, these are also pretty large hospitals. I mean, we are talking about the Gangarams and the AIIMS, and I think those kind of hospital is, I think, what we are looking at here. So I think that's, so again, a little bit, maybe 20 to 30%, a little bit lower, but these also become pretty energy intensive just because of the facilities that they provide. So I want to talk very briefly about, I think, the CCDC and AEEE ongoing project. And so I heard Dr. Purnima Prabhakaran mention about the healthcare without harm. So this number that we are looking at in terms of the climate footprint, the 39 million ton number, that is, I think, in the 2019 report that we are referring to. And what AEEE is really, I think, focused on is the scope 1 emission. I think that is, I think, yeah. And what our estimate is that the scope 1 emission is about 25% of the total, I think, Indian healthcare climate footprint that we are talking about in terms of the actual energy consumption that is happening within hospital. I think there is pharma, there is a lot of, I think, other thing. There is, I think, a vaccine network, and I think transport. I think a lot of other things that are happening that is not coming under that. I think even what is we are trying to do. So what is the objective of, I think, this exercise, which we are calling the energy footprinting study? So what we are trying to do is, I think we want to come out with much more rigorous and reliable data. So we want to map the energy footprint of the Indian healthcare system limited to hospitals. So this is something that I think we are not looking at blood banks. We are not looking at, I think, the lab facilities where the tests are done, because that also, I think, is a pretty significant infrastructure. And I think we are also probably not going to be focused a lot on the secondary, I think, care facilities, because those are, I think, we may be doing, I think, a few, but because our focus is to do energy footprinting, and we feel that, I think, that secondary will have a limited impact there. So we are only going to be primarily looking at primary healthcare, I think, community healthcare, I think, district hospitals, and then, of course, all the private sector hospitals. So then we want to assess the state of renewable energy deployment, also drive, I think, enhanced uptake of renewables in healthcare, and of course, I think, in terms of the energy efficiency component of all these things as well. What can come out of, I think, this study, and I think this is, we are looking mostly from hospital owners. So some of these things that once we have the operational energy end use data, then you can say that, hey, do I have benchmarks? Can I see whether I'm in the top decile or top quartile, my hospital, and what are the reasons why I am doing so well? And if I am not doing so well, then can I actually undertake an energy efficiency retrofit where we can look at, I think, what can be done on chillers or lighting? Can I actually have more advanced or more efficient procurement of medical imaging equipment? I think, I'm sure that these equipments cost crores of rupees, and they also cost lakhs or 10 lakhs of rupees. I think some of the CT scanners or MRI. So I think I'm going to be touching upon a little bit of that in terms of, I think, what can be done to actually do some savings. And when you are procuring, and when you are going to, say, the Siemens of the world, or to the GE of the world, or to the Philips of the world, and saying that, hey, I want to get an MRI machine, are we really asking them the right questions when it comes to, we sure ask them like, what is the strength? Is it a 3 Tesla machine? But are we asking them that, hey, what is the running cost of this machine going to be? Is it going to be 20 lakhs? Is it going to be 15 lakhs? Can you share me, I think, some of that information? I'm pretty sure that very, very few facilities actually do this at this point of time. So I think we will talk a little bit about that. So I think, so this is the thing that I was talking about in terms of optimizing energy use of medical imaging equipment. There are some studies primarily from Europe, because I think we don't have too many studies on this in India. We would love to actually, I think, with the help of, I think, maybe a CCDC or somebody, just focus on this, because this is another big area. I think we'll probably find out some more information, I think, through the survey that we are doing, but you can immediately see, I think, what is the potential here. So I think in terms of the energy saving potential that we are talking about, I'm just looking at 3 equipment: MRI, CT scan, X-ray. I think we can add ultrasound also in there, but I think we've thought that these are probably the 3 most energy intensive. And I think what you can see, first of all, that there are different modes under which these medical imaging equipment operates. And these are all from medical, I think, the original equipment manufacturer literature. This is not, I think, we will not do anything here that can compromise, I think, the integrity of the equipment or the reliability, or I think the operations, what I think the user manual tells us. So I think this information is all extracted, I think, from I think what is the recommendation and what are the modes that are clearly written there. So there is like off mode or scan mode or ready to scan mode, and sometimes off mode is not real off mode, because there is still, I think there is helium or hydrogen. I think there is some inert gas that needs to be powered on. I think the MRI machine, I think the cooling
system of that machine needs to be actually in operation, even if it is not scanning or the scan function is off. So I think there is clearly, it's a very, very technical thing. And I think if people, I think this could be completely separate discussion, I think, if we want to get into the details of this thing. But what you see that there are average power consumption, and you can immediately start to see that I think in the off mode in MRI, you see 9.3 kilowatt it is consuming, and you are scratching your head, oh my gosh, I think why is it consuming? But it's because I think of this, I think helium or hydrogen based cooling that is happening, and all the cooling system that needs to be, I think, running while I think you can turn off the scanning function. So that is there. Same for CT scanner, not as intensive as MRI, but in low power mode, it can really go down to 1.2 kilowatt. And I think, are you putting it in low power mode? I think for 10 hours or 12 hours, I think when there is no CT scan, that is going to be happening. Or I think the standard operating process is only to put it in idle mode, and where it is not going to save you this much. So I'm sure that I think once we start to get into these kind of nitty-gritty details, I think we will, I think some skeletons will come out of, I think, and you can start to see on the right-hand side that what is, I think, the energy savings. If you start to operate, and I think you have standard operating process, I think so 3 lakhs per year could be the amount of savings per MRI machine if you are not, I think, doing the off mode properly. And if you are just putting it ready to scan, I'm not saying I think this is, I think it happens, but it can be, I think, an opportunity area for us. Similarly, for CT scan, it could be close to 1 lakh per year. And then for X-ray, it could be like 35,000 rupees per year, what we are talking about. So moving on, I know that. So what are some of the best practices, I think, in terms of medical imaging equipment operation? So you have to, first thing is that you have to consult with manufacturers to ensure that equipment is configured for optimal energy performance. Our hunch is that sometimes it is not the case. I think because I think when we have tried to reach out to the OEMs, we have had real difficulty in extracting, I think, the energy consumption information from them. And I think we would like to actually come out with these things and put it out in public domain, so that I think when you are making the decision, I think those things can be looked at. Ensure proper maintenance by qualified certified personnel, and I think you operate as per user manual. You train the staff which is responsible for running, I think, this medical imaging equipment, so that they know, I think, they are deploying the low power features, and then I think reaping the energy savings reward. Switch the system to on off as part of standard operating procedure, or configure it, I think, in the system itself to activate low power mode automatically if that thing can be done. And I think regulate the air conditioning system, I think, when the machine is off. And I think, as I talked about, that MRI machine needs to be handled very, very carefully. You need to ensure that, I think, there is backup, and I think the cooling function is on. Then I think in terms of, I think, some of the procurement guidelines, I think does your procurement policy ask for energy consumption data for typical operating scenarios? I think if you are not doing it, my strong recommendation is start doing this. I think does your organization procure equipment with energy and environmental documentation? So if you are concerned about, I think, climate change, and I think ESG in terms of environmental, social, I think in governance framework, I think you can, once you start to do, you will start to highlight some of these things. Do you ask the manufacturer to provide technical advice and training on proper settings? Has someone, I think, you've been assigned this responsibility in your organization? Is it, I think, that person's responsibility? And I think, are you evaluating the typical usage scenario, I think, at the administration level, so that I think these things can be looked at. So last section of my presentation is that I think, how do you make buildings efficient when you are designing a new hospital? I think clearly there are a lot of consultants and other things who are there. And what we have done, I mean, that again could go into excruciating level of detail. But what we have tried to do is to just, I think, give you a very, very high level overview in terms of what building energy codes are. There are some code compliance, which is becoming mandatory. So I think for, I think, large hospitals, energy conservation building code will be required to be met. For primary healthcare centers, maybe it will be the Eco Niwas Samhita, which is more for residential, and that could be applicable there. There are some operational rating, I think, in terms of wealth or health being or well-being of people, which are being looked at, especially I think with the pandemic hitting, I think, the physical and mental health of people so hard. So that is there. And on the right hand side, you see, I think, all the green building rating systems, I think, that are there, and many hospitals are green building rated as well. So I think in the interest of time, we will share, I think, this presentation so that I think the recording is available, and I think the presentation slides are also available. I think last slide that I just want to talk about is the energy efficiency retrofit. I think again, we can do a much, I think, a bigger presentation. And I think there are some, I think at least one or two pretty good ESCOs. This is one existing ESCO, I think, and we feel confident about, I think, in naming them. This is Smart Joules. I think they are energy service provider, and they only do hospital retrofits. So they are very, very, I think, well qualified. And this is one case study what we have asked for them from them, so that we can just share. So this is like an Apollo hospital, pretty large facility. As you can see, it's like 2 lakh square feet. So when you saw that 15,000 to 25,000 square meter, so this is one of those big facilities that we are talking about. They did it in 2019. What was the electric connected load? How much was the size of the HVAC or the air conditioning system? I think what did they do actually? I think what are the interventions that they did in terms of improving the air conditioning systems, installing frequency drives, pumps, and other things, automation. And then what was the savings that they were able to do? So I think this is about 1 crore per year of savings that they were able to deliver to that hospital. And the payback was less than 2 years, about 20 months. So I feel that there are so many hospitals that can actually benefit. I think if you know the benchmarks, if you are able to arrive at the decision to make these investments pretty quickly, and if you go with the right organization, which has the right expertise and the right people and the technology to actually enable this kind of a thing. So I think in terms of the conclusion, I think what can we learn from data and checklists? And I think I mean, this is a healthcare. So Atul Gawande, I think he's a pretty famous doctor, writes a lot, I think, on healthcare, and he's a big fan of data and checklist, right? So I'm saying what one applies in medical practice, I think you can use the same principle to apply in medical hospital facility design, operation, and maintenance. And I think then you are more comfortable that I have a very, very high performing hospital facility running. I'm not wasting any money, and I can actually claim that this is the greenest facility, or we are a very, very climate friendly hospital that we are running. So you identify best sources of information, challenge the assumptions, ask some uncomfortable and sometimes stupid questions, because don't just take, I think, some of this information on face value. Ask for evidence. I think sometimes I always, I think, within our team, we talk about some of these people and then create a culture of data-driven decisions. I think if you go with this, then you probably can be much more comfortable investing, I think, 1 crore or 2 crore of rupees, and then reaping the rewards in terms of the payback that I just showed, I think, on the last slide. So I think that's it. Thank you very much again for, I think, giving us an opportunity. And if there are questions, I'll be very happy to take them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Satish Kumar. That was a wonderful talk, and I am sure that the attendees today must be having a lot of takeaways from today's conversation. Over to you, Dr. Purnima, if you would like to discuss more on this. With this, we will also take questions from our attendees today. If you have any questions, you can drop it in the Q&A box, or you can simply raise your hand. I'll give you the speaking rights. Over to you, Dr. Purnima. Thank you.
Thank you, Masroor, and thank you, Dr. Kumar. I think that was real tour de force about the concept of energy efficiency in healthcare, and thank you so much for sharing your experience so far. I don't see any questions so far in the Q&A box, but maybe I'll just share a couple of thoughts that I had while listening to you. It was really very insightful. Let me start by saying that, you know, you talked about hospitals, for instance, being of commercial buildings in India. So I was just wondering, I mean, has there, I mean, apart from your study, has there been talk about is this just because it's 6% only? Has there been any thought process behind working with the healthcare sector in India to becoming energy efficient? I know we are now going to work together to document that baseline energy efficiency, whatever baseline assessment of energy consumption in Indian healthcare sector. But I'm just wondering about why that conversation has not been there, given that it's such an energy intensive sector.
No, yeah, I think thank you. I think for the kind words. We are, I think we have not seen too much focus. I know that, I think as I talked about, there are some businesses, I think, which are very interested in making healthcare sectors energy efficient, but really a drop in the ocean. I know that, I think the Smart Joules, it's also a member of AEEE. At Arjun Gupta, I think the principal who is the moving force, I think behind Smart Joules. I would very strongly encourage that I think you do a webinar with Smart Joules actually, because that will be extremely helpful in terms of creating awareness about the retrofit possibilities and potential, because he will be able to talk much more, I think, in terms of, because they may have done 20, 25 hospitals retrofits, I think, or maybe more. And what are the things that they are seeing in terms of the hospital. So I think that is one, I think, a very good example of one organization that has made, I think, its primary mission in terms of how to go about it. But there has been, I think, some talk about Bureau of Energy Efficiency, looking at hospitals as an energy efficient, energy intensive sector. So they have a program called Perform, Achieve and Trade. And I think under the Perform, Achieve and Trade program, they look at baselining the facility. So the work that we are doing in terms of baselining can become a pretty good, I think, starting reference for them. And then I think for the ones which are really large facilities, what Bureau of Energy Efficiency does, that it starts to give targets that I think in the next 3-year cycle, you have to implement energy efficiency measure, which will make your facility say 5 to 10%. Just give me 1 second. I'm on a call. I'll call you later. So they give you targets in terms of that your facility from the baseline needs to become more than 5 or 10% more energy efficient than what it has been. So I think those are probably, I think, a few things that I can think about in terms of that. But clearly, I mean, you see that 6% is the built up area in terms of the commercial building, but 14% is the energy intensity. So clearly, I think the energy intensiveness of, I think, the healthcare sector is recognized by most of the people. I think, and I think the thing that AEEE is interested in is that we want to, I think, create the overall awareness, and we want to come out with, I think, the ground proofing exercise or this benchmarking exercise, which starts to tell people that, hey, I need to see something about it. We are not doing very well. Right now, other than the conversation, you go to a facility, people, and they'll say, oh, no, we are very energy efficient. And how do you know that? I mean, what is the benchmark that we are using? No, we don't know, but we have a carrier or this, I think, installed this particular equipment, and we use all the best medical imaging equipment. So we are energy efficient. So there is not a very good conversation that happens. So I'll stop here.
Thank you. And I think you touched upon some very important points in terms of energy efficiency of medical equipment. So we're, happy to share that as part of another project that we do about sustainable health and procurement in healthcare, which you also touched upon. So there are conversations that we are doing in that space about bringing in energy efficiency in the procurement criteria for, medical equipment as well. So yes, that's a big chunk of the footprint as well. And so we are very conscious about sensitizing our membership about that aspect. And I will take your point on, bringing somebody to talk about retrofitting, because we are talking about all this, bringing in efficiency in our resource uses, but most of the time it's going to be about retrofitting. So I was having a conversation this morning with colleagues in the NHSRC, National Health Systems Resource Center. And again, that's what they were stressing on. While we are talking about, for example, the Ayushman Bharat program, which is about upscaling the sub-centers to the health and wellness centers. Maybe this is the moment when we need to, capture and bring these conversations to, because otherwise, again, we're going to fall back into the retrofitting mode, and that's going to be another exercise. And within our membership, we do have a couple of members at least who have been exemplars in this energy efficiency space. I will name them: Narvind Eye Care Hospital in Puducherry and Bhagat Hospital in Delhi, in Dwarka.
Yeah. Bhagat,
They
we are
have
aware
done,
of that. Yeah.
yeah, documented as case studies as well within our repository. So they, the costing, the investment case for moving towards energy efficiency. I think that's an important conversation that we have to package when we are done with our study. I think it's really important.
Right. And I think some things that I just want to talk about in terms of the secondary care and the primary health care, right? Because those are primarily funded through government funds. And I think some very simple things, if that can be incorporated in the design and construction guidelines. So for instance, we can say that the fans that are going to get installed, because I think these facilities will have fans, will have, I think, light. So we can say that only LED lighting will be used, I think, in all these facilities, and only super efficient fans. So instead of like the fans which can use 70, 75 watts, if we say that there is technology which uses 28 to 30 watts, which is like probably more than 50% of saving. So these facilities are there for many, many years and decades. And I think you can recoup the cost very, very, I think, fast. So it is mostly, I think it can be aligned with the government finance rules, the GFRs, in terms of like whether it's the right use of, I think, government resources. And I think these are some very, very simple things that can be done very quickly to actually, and you don't need, I think, an energy auditor or an ESCO or others to do that. I mean, these are some of the things that we can work, I think, in terms of crafting language and other things, and then just letting it go. We are not talking about huge investments here.
I will read out one question which is there in the chat. I think this is from Orbit Energy Analytics, asking you, what is the Indian equivalent of OSHA standards for healthcare facilities?
Boy, I wish, I think Purnimaji, I will ask you probably. I think you, is there like a safety and I think health thing? I don't know what is the counterpart for OSHA. I'm sure that there will be something under the Ministry of Health, but offhand I cannot think about. Occupational, yeah, occupational safety and hazard, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we certainly have some standards for occupational health and safety in India.
Right.
I mean, I can share with you probably in an email what those, share links to that and information on that. But also, I think I wanted to share with you also, Dr. Kumar, about green hospital standards that our team actually drawing from all of these. So the LEED and the IGBC standards for building codes, the GRIHA standards. There's also the international standards. So our team has worked in the past few years, I mean, and brought out green hospital standards as well.
Okay, we should probably include that in that slide then. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's also something which has been taken up, and we are working towards accreditation for that. We already have one accreditation with the QAI, Quality Accreditation of India, but we are hoping to get it also certified with NABH. And that again brings in all of these components. So building, infrastructure, energy, water, waste management, procurement for sure. And we have also worked with the NHSRC to incorporate all these principles of environmentally sustainable healthcare in their recent, they're looking at revising the Indian public health standards. So I think we have been working with them on that as well. So all of these concepts will feed into that. We'll just check and see if there's, yes, there is one more question from, I think, Zishan Ahmed of Care Hospitals asking, how effective will be the solar energy use, and can you explain the cost of the same? Now that's implementation.
Yeah, I think I think it's a good question. I'm glad I'm getting this opportunity to answer this question. So I think one of the things that we emphasize a lot
I think in our work at AEEE is that you have to follow, I think, a certain construct or a certain process when you are talking about energy consumption. And I think that construct is that you need to think about, I think, where is the energy getting consumed? And I think you saw that I put like fans and lights and refrigerators and air conditioners and hot water. And I think in refrigeration systems, I think for morgues and other things. So I mean, there are all those, I think, end users are the places where your energy is getting consumed, right? So I think if you are talking about a secondary care or a primary healthcare facility, right, which is a small facility, is not very energy intensive, again, as part of the standard design, I would say that there should be on the rooftop, I think, a solar panel, I think, that needs to be put on, which can probably take care of the limited electrical requirements of that healthcare centers that we are talking about. When you start to come to some of the big hospitals, right? I think you are talking about, I think, the medical colleges, I think hospitals associated with that, or the multi-specialty, super specialty. I think what you will find that you have limited, I think, rooftop area, I think, and you have very, very energy intensive operations. So I'm just putting it out there. We call it lean, mean, and green. So when you design a building, we say that first design the building very, very well so that you can reduce the daylight you can reduce your artificial lighting requirement, you can reduce your cooling requirement, and I think when you are running your pipes and ducts, then insulate them properly. I think use high performance glazing and a lot of these things. So what it does, that it reduces the total energy footprint of that facility that you are designing. Okay, so that's, I think, the first thing that you need to do. The second thing that you need to do is that you need to go for the LED or super efficient fans or high performance chillers, or I think the medical imaging equipment that takes care of your performance specs, I think, in terms of scanning, but it also probably 5 or 10% more efficient than other ones, I think, if there are. So I think that basically, I think, it allows you to create an energy efficient infrastructure. And then you say that, okay, whatever energy that now I am going to consume, I am going to try to meet it with renewable energy. So I think it's very, very important that you do this in this particular order. I think the question also is betraying a little bit of a mindset that I can put like solar panel on my hospital and I think I am energy efficient or I'm good. No, because that rooftop solar panel that you are going to be putting in case of large facilities, that may just generate 5%, 2%, 3% of the total electricity requirement of that hospital. Or if you have access, maybe 10%. So you are better off investing in more energy efficient equipment first before you start to talk about the solar cost and other, I think, piece that we are talking about. So I think depending on, I think, again, what kind of hospital you are talking about. That's why I said that in rural areas, I think in remote areas where you don't have reliable power, absolutely, I think solar should be the first thing that should be designed along with, I think, the infrastructure. And then I think the more efficient lamps and the more efficient fans and everything. But if you do it as an afterthought, and you say that, hey, I don't know, I think how much my energy, I'll put a solar rooftop. I mean, that is just not the right way to make, I think, your healthcare greener. I think in terms of, so you can, and I think while we work on the demand side, and I think this is something that we are very, very particular about, that I think greening the healthcare is not putting a solar panel on your rooftop. I think it's about looking at, I think, how efficiently all your end users, I think, are getting used or not getting used. And that can be done through an assessment, through an audit, and I think an implementation. And I think when they do, I think when they come and say, we are going to improve your facility, then you should absolutely ask that, tell me about the renewable energy options as well. I think in terms of, I think what could be. So I think I have not directly answered the question, but I am just trying to go to the very fundamental nature of, I think, what causes confusion in many people's minds I think in terms of that, hey, I put solar and I think you have done something good. Solar comes last. Absolutely last point is, I think, where solar should be coming in. You should absolutely be doing solar, but I think only after you have looked at, I think, what you can do through energy efficiency and where you want to deploy, I think, the resource that you have. And you may find that, hey, I need to actually buy a more energy efficient chiller, or I need to put in more efficient glazing, or I put some shading. That's where I think I will get the maximum bang for the buck, and not by putting, I think, rooftop solar. So I think good consultants can actually do this exercise for you, where they will say that where I think is your best, I think, resources, how it is getting deployed. So I think this is important. Unfortunately, we don't work on solar and other thing, but I think you will need to probably ask, I think, in terms of like what is the kilowatt, I think, peak power, in terms of what is the investment. But the other thing also is that if you have rooftop area, there are facilities, there are people who will, so this is another thing. If you are not deploying your own capital, there are companies which will come, they are called RESCO, Renewable Energy Service Companies, who will say that you don't have to put in any investment. You come in and you give us, I think, rights to put, I think, a solar panel on the rooftop, and through a leasing model, we will try to recover the cost of it. So I think there are models like that where I think you don't need to go capital intensive. There are alternative financing models for both RESCOs as well as for ESCOs, even if you don't want to put in your own money. Through the cash flow that you are generating from energy savings or from extra renewable energy generation, I think you will be able to, I think, pay down the loans that you are taking. So I think these are, I think, some other models that I think are also available.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Just to add to that, I think this talk about transitioning to renewable energy, I think the conversation also should center around the type of facility. Like I said, I mean, for a multi-specialty hospital in the metro city, the ask is slightly different, and their approach should be a little different than what it should be for a rural healthcare center. So I think, for example, we do have the, the exemplar that everybody talks about, Chhattisgarh state, which solarized all its primary healthcare centers. And an evaluation was done to see what the impacts was. It was not just on the, because earlier there was this interrupted energy supply, and what it did for health outcomes in terms of their patient care. Inpatient as well as outpatient outcomes were better off when they could leverage renewable energy, solar energy in this case. So there is a different kind of scenario in each situation. So where we are talking about multi-specialty hospitals in metro cities, for instance, I think then there you need that incremental approach. An energy audit, of course, is very useful. I think you first need to understand your own landscape. Where is your resource intensive operation, and of course whether it's equipment or your different operations within your facility itself. I think there is where an energy audit comes in as a very useful baseline approach to take, and then decide on the solar. And the solar, again, the business models, like, if you have the rooftop and you have the space, put up the solar panels, you could contribute to the grid. You are also using the solar energy and harnessing that energy for your own facility, but also you could be giving back to the grid. So there are different models, and the investment case, Zishan from Care Hospitals, I think there is different examples out there. So even for medium level facilities, like I mentioned, Bhagat Hospital, which is a medium-sized facility in South Delhi. The return back on the capital investment is huge. And I think for every healthcare facility, that is an important takeaway. Like, at the end of the day, if you are benefiting from that investment as well, I think both in terms of your payback options, as well as you're becoming more environmental friendly as well. I think those perspectives are also important. We could share with you, or connect you to, more details on the solar costing and all of that. We are doing it for both private and public healthcare facilities. We'll be happy to connect with you and share more details. I don't know if there are any more questions out there. Dr. Kumar, I just want to ask you one last question, if you're okay. I know we are over time over here.
Did we just lose Dr. Kumar? I'm not able to see him.
Seems to have dropped off.
Looks like either there is some
Yeah.
internet issue at his end or maybe his laptop. So
Okay, we'll just give it 30 seconds, maybe a minute to see if he's joining back.
sure.
Okay, there. Yeah, he's.
Hi, sorry. I think my computer shut down. I don't know what happened. So,
Okay.
I-
Yeah, so yeah, we realized we lost you there briefly. But just, I thought maybe if you're okay with hanging on for a few minutes more, I just thought I'll ask you one more question, which is more to do with where we'll go with the work that we've started with you. I just wanted to learn from what has been your experience. I know you have done this kind of exercise, you know, in baselining other sectors. So how has that translated into, you know, implementation in terms of policy? Has it helped? How has this baselining been translated into policy making, if at all?
I would say that a lot of our work has been mostly secondary research. We are thinking of doing more primary data collection for office buildings and others. And I know that there is one residential energy survey work that has been done less than a year ago. So we don't, I think, you have very good experience of, I think, telling in terms of what I think it will happen. But I know that I think once we have more reliable and accurate data, a lot of the, I was talking about the PAT work that is, so I think what typically happens that they will identify and say that, okay, hospital is an energy intensive sector and they will not do a full primary survey. Okay, they will just, and it is based on hunch essentially. I mean, this is not, I think Indian policy making many times is not based on, I think, on data. And that's what I think IEEE is trying to work on, that if we are able to collect some of this data, then we can go to Bureau of Energy Efficiency, then we can go to Ministry of Health and others and say that, look, I think this is how I think the hospital guidelines should change, or I think you should prioritize, I think, some things. So, and if you are talking about, I think, publishing industry-wide benchmarks, then these are the numbers I think that we should be publishing, so that I think even before I think people do an energy audit, I think these benchmarks can give them a lot of information. And this is something that I personally feel that if you have benchmarks available and if you have a good energy monitoring system, I think that you install, I think, in large facilities, then you really don't know the audit the way it is done. You have a continuous audit that you are doing automatically inside the hospital, just the way I think you have done the energy monitoring setup, energy management system. I think if you go to our website, AEEE.in, there is an energy management dashboard that is there. And I think if you take that and if country level or regional level, I think benchmarks are published, then we can immediately tell that, hey, I think we are in the top 10%, I think, of the, I think, national average that we are talking about. And not just that, I think we can also, I think, dive into the individual functions, like, oh, our lighting is this efficient, our cooling is this efficient, our hot water system is this efficient. So this is how I think you really go about designing a green hospital, in my opinion. I think I think when you go into this, I think there are a lot of things which you can think in terms of what technology can do. And I think sometimes I do get critical of the, I think, although I'm myself like a lead fellow, but I think the kind of behavior that this greenwashing elicits is, I think, is something that is not very good for proper designing and operation and maintenance. People are saying that, hey, I need to get that plaque on this thing. They are not doing, I think, the basic things in the right possible manner. And I think that is something about that we need to create more awareness about. So, I'm sure that I think this kind of work, once it happens, will become very, very helpful. We can think of so many use cases.
I showed some of the use cases from a hospital owner perspective. We have use cases from policymakers perspective. We have use cases from an ESCO or an energy auditor perspective, that how I think his or her work actually will get very, very influenced in a positive manner once I think this kind of data gets published, I think in the public domain. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's more about, I think, whether I am confident enough of publishing this data. And I think that is probably what we are looking at. But I think with this survey, we are hopeful that I think we will be so much more confident about the data that we will be collecting.
Okay, thank you so much. I certainly at the Public Health Foundation of India, we, as our ethos is evidence translation to policy. So we will certainly be looking to take the findings of this study and the recommendations to the Ministry of Health. And right from the start, I've been engaging with them as important stakeholders, not just with the National Center for Disease Control, which is the nodal agency for the National Program for Climate Change and Health. And within that framework, we've been talking to them about environmentally sustainable healthcare facilities, and energy, of course, is a big pillar within that, and with the National Health Systems Resource Center. So we've been talking to them right from the beginning and sensitizing them that this is happening, and they're also looking forward to what will come out of this work. So thank you so much for collaborating with us on that work, and also for joining us on this webinar today. Let me just check one last time if there's anything else on the question answer board. No. So I'll actually close by thanking you, Dr. Kumar, for joining us today and adding to our repository of the Climate Smart Healthcare webinar series. These will be resources that will be continuously shared with all our membership for those who couldn't join the webinar in person. And I'm sure going forwards, there will be many more opportunities for us to engage and translate all the knowledge that we are building together. So thank you so much for your time today. And thank you to all the attendees who have stayed with us through the webinar and through the Q&A. I also want to close by thanking my team. Sania Prakash, who actually reached out to you the first time to come and join us as a speaker, actually has some medical issues at home, so is not with us. But I want to start by thanking her and my colleague Mazroor Asam, who stepped in and to organize the logistics for this webinar, and my entire team at CCDC and your team at AEEE. We meet every week now to discuss this work, and we are very excited and looking forward to implementing this project. And if you have any last words, please feel free. And
we are equally excited, Dr. Purnima. So I think we are looking forward to, I think, working together. And I think whatever we can do, I think please feel free to reach out. I think our team is, I think, on making, I think, the healthcare sector greener or energy efficient. We are always ready. I think whichever way we can help.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sure it will be a good piece of work, and we'll certainly take it to the place where it needs to go, the findings and what needs to happen in terms of policy making after that. So look forward to the next few months together, working together.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mazroor.